When you start a side hustle or a brand new business, if you don't know what you're doing and you have no business background or training, the stress can be overwhelming. In this episode of the Dumpster Fire Project, Murray and I speak with Kimberly Spencer. Kimberly is a certified high-performance coach, best-selling writer, and founder of Crown Yourself, a business that works with entrepreneurs. Kimberly works with everyday normal entrepreneurs and helps them build an empire out of their business. In this episode of the podcast, Murray and I are going to be talking to Kimberly about all kinds of things. Most importantly, some high-value takeaways. We're going to be talking about how to fight through self-doubt and procrastination and how to go all in, and when you know it's time to go all in on that side hustle. So let's get it. Kimberly, welcome to the Dumpster Fire.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to light some shit on fire with you guys.
Let's do it.
Let's go. We've been told we get kind of boring sometimes. So all right, let's fire this thing. Nice. Well, speaking of that, so jumping right in, why don't you tell us about crownyourself.com and what you do, because it's pretty exciting stuff that you do there, right?
Yeah. So I work with visionary leaders to help them transform their stories of self-limitation, to help them build their empire, stand out authentically, and really serve from their soul in a place of authenticity and alignment. And I started out looking back at my history. If you had told me when I was a kid that I would turn out to be a coach, that wasn't a thing back then. I wanted to be a princess. So I just figured I'd build that into my business. And so thus I've named it crownyourself.com, because the thing about queens and the metaphor that I love so much is that when a queen is born a princess, and they're in lineage to become a queen, they're basically being groomed from the moment that they're born for the job that they're going to have, for the job of leadership. And yet so often when we are growing up, so many people are groomed with the way that they should be doing their life, or the mission that they should have, or with the steps that have worked for other people, or go to this job or do this realistic thing, rather than really living into that purpose or that dream or that vision that we all kind of have stirring in our souls. And what if instead we rose into our reign to crown ourselves and to live into that mission, to serve from that place of excellence, and to be able to serve those people that only we are built to serve, that our experiences, that our education, that everything that we've gone through up until this point has allowed us to speak into someone and help them grow into the highest and best version. Like, what if we all just raised each other up into being the kings and queens of our own lives? And that's really what Crown Yourself is about. It's yes, it's empowering leaders, but it's also skilling them up, because you can empower and motivate, and that's great. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a skill set to lean into, then motivation kind of lies flat. Whereas instead, if you can skill up to be able to use your body as a tool, is one of the things that I work with a lot of my clients on, is using your body as a tool to be able to find where certainty and trust lie in your body, to be able to use your feelings as a guide to things that you value, to being able to really build your empire and look at the systems that you're putting into place to support you so that you can have the freedom-based life that you want to have. Like, nobody builds a business with a desire to imprison themselves to a desk for 24/7. And yet so many entrepreneurs do that.
Yeah,
why?
Attorneys do that all the time.
Exactly. Like, you could just do that as an attorney.
Yeah.
Versus being able to really just lean into that genius zone, that thing that you do so well that you could do for free, and that it comes so naturally to you, and being able to lean into that and then delegate to other people's genius zones. So we're all operating and firing on all cylinders, doing more because we're doing less.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a really good place to start, because it seems like you crown yourself, everything's in a really good spot now. But the backbone of the podcast is we're all human. Like, we had to go through some kind of struggle to get where we're at. And while I might know your story, can you share with the audience, what was that struggling moment that you came to realize, okay, I have this different calling and this is what I want to go and do? Just step us through that.
Well, I had to set several careers and beliefs on fire. I had to throw into the dumpster the belief that I was broken. I had to throw into the dumpster the belief that I was damaged, the belief that I was a victim because of certain experiences that I had growing up. My dad was an addict, and my mom was a codependent. And while they were very supportive of me with believing that I could achieve anything, I did get some pretty crappy programming around beliefs of what I deserve, beliefs of enoughness, beliefs of self-worth, and some experiences from growing up with an addict. I had to set some of those beliefs on fire. I had to set the career of screenwriting on fire, and I chose to because when I first started, like, my career path to becoming a high performance coach is very windy and from a place of it came because of curiosity, not because of any particular path that anyone said I should follow. Both my parents, I was blessed with the ability to follow my curiosity, to lean into whatever it was that I desired, and them not project their perceived limitations or their perception of what I quote unquote should be doing. Because both my parents were entrepreneurs, they did support me in pursuing whatever endeavor I was, because they saw that I was always kind of a hustler. Whether it was in entertainment, I would be going around dropping my headshot off, interning at production offices. Like I learn best on the job. And then, when I became a screenwriter, I had the opportunity of getting a film that I co-wrote, produced, and distributed, and it's on Netflix, and it was distributed by Lionsgate. And when I got that opportunity, I realized that I was only like 90% fulfilled. And I was like, whoa, what, like, this was my big dream. I've been working for this for years, and this happens. And I got curious. I didn't get judgmental, but I was like, okay, well, what is it about this? Because I knew that as an actor, I set that dream on fire because I hated being cast as hot girl number 5. I did not like those roles. I wanted something that was meaty, that had transformation involved, because that's the business that I've always been in, is in transforming people's stories, whether it's in the medium of film or the medium of Pilates, which is what I started doing to then supplement my career in entertainment, because I needed a bridge job and I wanted one that I could have some space and time and set my own schedule. And I didn't want to wait tables. But when I got my film produced, that was when 2 weeks later, I got a text message from a friend who had given some tickets, because when you write a movie, you get extra tickets, and I doled them out like candy. And I gave them to this friend of a friend, and she brought her son. And her son saw the film, and 2 weeks later, I get a text from my friend, and she said, I just want to let you know that film changed this kid's life. And I was like, what? Really? The film about freestyle motocross that has Danny Trejo and drugs in it, and like things that my mom was like, how did you learn all about that? I was like, it was just research, Mom. But I said, really, that film? And she said, yeah, the kid was following the same path. The film at its base level is just a kid who gets caught up in the wrong crowd. He tries to fit in. And it's a lesson in what is the difference between fitting in versus belonging. And we've all been there, wanting to be a part of the cool crowd. And I said, I can write that movie. And then 4 drafts in, my director was like, can you add in motocross? I was like, I know nothing about motocross, but sure. There's YouTube. And that film ended up changing a kid's life. And then eventually down the road, it ended up enhancing another kid's life that I was blessed to meet, and his family. And I would have never had those experiences had I not written this motocross movie like that. You would never thought I would have written. And it actually led me to meeting my husband too. So, I mean, but at the same time, I didn't love certain aspects of production. I didn't love certain things about the game of Hollywood. And so I shifted from Hollywood into being an entrepreneur. And so I allowed myself to just follow my curiosity. I was like, I love transforming people's stories. Maybe it's transforming people's stories in the vein of this e-commerce company that I got the opportunity to be a consultant on because of my background as a Pilates instructor. And I've always been quite audacious with my ask. And when I saw this product and I saw the possibility, I said, well, I don't want to be a consultant. I want to be a partner in this. And my business partner ended up saying yes. And so I joined a $250,000 e-commerce company and suddenly was the president of it. And for 2 years, I got to bring this product to market. We got it featured in New York Times Square. We got it featured in major news outlets. I got to pitch it to the first round of Shark Tank auditions. And then 2 years of hard work in, my business partner tells me he wants to buy me out. And for me, that was a crushing blow for the first time of feeling like a failure. And for 3 months, I dealt with lawyers and negotiating and all that. And it was the first time for me that I'd ever had my integrity called into check, my capabilities, my education, basically everything that all of my insecurities that I'd kind of just allowed to subside for a while, they all were brought to the surface. And after I was bought out, we signed the agreement 3 weeks before I got married and went off on my honeymoon. And so that fire happened, and I was on my honeymoon wondering, like, what am I going to do when I get back? And it was then that I was looking at all of my passions. I looked at all the things I'd overcome. I'd overcome bulimia and a 10-year battle with that. I'd found a love for my body. I found a love for fitness. I found the love of my life. I love business. I love entrepreneurship. I've always had a love for that. And I thought of this like just holistic business that I could help people. I wanted to serve people. And I probably had way too many espressos. And I leaped off the couch and I said, crown yourself. And my husband's like, what's that? And I was like, I have no idea, but that's my business. And he said, okay. And I got started in doing what I call productive procrastination, because for the first time in my life, I was dealing with really, really crippling doubt when it came to my career. Because in the past, I may have had crippling doubt about my body image. I may have had crippling doubt about my relationships, but I'd never had it in regards to business. And that experience of a year and a half being in doubt, and what I call the dungeon of doubt, and really being trapped there in a mindset where I was blaming everyone else for the fact that I was there, was not a pleasant place to be. And then I found out I was pregnant, and I knew that the person that I was, that identity of the complainer, the blamer, the person who felt so ashamed, the person who just at my core, I knew I was operating from a place of cowardice because I wasn't stepping up. I wasn't living into the values that I said my company was preaching. Authenticity. I felt like I was faking it every day. Ownership. I was being a victim of my circumstances. I was blaming everyone. So I wasn't living into these values. And when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, there is no way I want this version of me being the mother of my child. So I knew I could fix it. I knew I could shift it. I knew I'd done it before because I'd reprogrammed my mindset from being bulimic to now having a relationship with my body that I absolutely love. And so I knew I could do it with business because it was basically mirroring the same thing. And immediately after I found out I was pregnant, I added $5,000 of credit card debt to the $35,000 I already had, and said, I'm signing up for my first coach. I got certified in NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnosis. And after that, was driving across country within 2 weeks to go get certified and work with this coach. And what happened was just a month after that, I started operating with so much more courage. I started making more audacious asks. I started putting myself out there. I started actually selling a product, which was my coaching, as a business, and started operating as a business owner. And it was in that space that I learned so much. And I have so much empathy now for my clients when they're stuck in that space of doubting themselves and in fear, because I know what it feels like and I know how stuck it can be. And that just those small acts of courage every day of just putting yourself out there and willing to be rejected and willing to make mistakes and being willing to get messy and get dirty and learn and pick yourself back up and be freaking resilient. That process is so invaluable to eventually building, like, just the fact that we're able to be here in Australia and live our life and have a business that supports it all. Like, this is literally us being able to live into our dream that we have had since for the past 8 years since I've been with my husband. And it's so awesome to be able to have that and then to be able to support others to do the same.
Yes. Murray, we're not going to get to talk tonight.
I'm a talk. Brevity is not my specialty.
We're sitting back here, and no, I'm taking it all in. It's there. I have so many. You saw me. I was kind of taking some notes because I'm like, oh, I don't want to forget that. I don't want to forget that. One of the things I was thinking, I think I saw it on either on one of your videos or on your website. You mentioned that, and you have clearly had a lot of success in different things in your life, but you said that it never felt like enough. What exactly did you mean by that?
Oh, not enoughness, not feeling worthy, and not deserving of the things that you receive or the successes that you have are the top 3 beliefs I see with pretty much every human. But the not enoughness was always that it was that wounded child of maybe if I'm smart enough, then I'll get noticed. Maybe if I succeed enough, maybe if I make enough money, maybe if I run enough marathons, maybe if I do enough, then something out there will change for me. For me, when growing up, that was my perception of maybe if I'm smart enough, if I'm skinny enough, then my dad will stop drinking. So those were the beliefs that I operated by, that maybe if I was just enough, then this person will change. And that's not necessarily true. Like that's a belief of causality that puts things outside of your own control rather than your enoughness being 100% within your own control to be able to claim at any point that you are completely enough and you can keep growing at the same time. And that's the paradox that I had to discover, was that there is this science of achievement, and especially with the high achievers that I work with, there is, you can keep on achieving and achieving and achieving. But the problem is that if you are achieving without celebrating what you are achieving, if it's not landing, if it's not sinking in, then you're losing the fulfillment, and you're always going to be chasing some other Everest because nothing will ever feel good enough because you're not feeling good enough. And this part is what, you will find freedom when you find fulfillment. And that doesn't mean that you stop and stay stagnant and just make it to the top of your mountain and achieve this big thing, and then suddenly there's no more growth. There is always something new to grow into. But being able to grow into it from a place of already feeling enough and capable versus from a place of scarcity and lack.
Nice. Very good. You mentioned the word fulfillment, and you seem very intentional when you use that word. Something that we've debated on this show a lot with guests, and Murray and I ourselves have debated. We always talk about following your passion or doing something you're passionate about. But we've also heard the other side of this debate where it's like, well, or find something that you're really good at that creates fulfillment in your life. If you do that and you become great at it, it'll create passion and fulfillment in your life. That's kind of like where I'm at. Attorneys, you've worked with them, can be a very stressful career. I'm looking at long term. I live in a kind of a small town, and I see some of these older attorneys that look much older than they really are. And I think I don't want to do that long term. And I'm trying to avoid this trap of just be happy. I'm trying to create fulfillment and do something that I'm passionate about at the same time. Where do you kind of fall on this debate about, should you do something you're passionate about? Should you do something you're good at? I mean, it sounds like you've kind of followed your passions kind of into where you are now, but you're also doing something you're really good at too.
Yeah. For me, I like to ask the question, when you were about 4, 5, 6 years old, who did you want to be and what did you want to do?
Cecil Fielder, play for the Detroit Tigers.
So that's baseball, yeah.
Yes.
I love sports metaphors. I suck at sports, and I don't know anything really about.
Oh, I literally wanted to be him and play for the Tigers.
Okay, so some form of athleticism, because the beautiful thing is when you can look at those beliefs of who you wanted to be. So, for example, when I was about 4, 5, 6 years old, I wanted to be an actress, and I thought that was the dream. But when I looked deeper beyond what it was why I wanted to be an actress, what was it about acting that I thought was really the thing. I loved different characters. I loved transformative stories. But the thing that I really loved was I didn't really have, because I grew up in Hollywood, California, I didn't really have any other models for any other career that provided the income and the impact that I wanted to make. Because I would see actors, they make, millions of dollars for a movie, and then they're able to donate tons of money to charity or create a production company that produces, like Reese Witherspoon does with Hello Sunshine, of producing a whole bunch of amazing female empowered films. So like, I didn't really have any other example of that. And so I thought, okay, well, acting is the form in which I could do it. So sometimes we get trapped into the form of how we think we quote unquote should do this thing. But if we really dive into the why behind, why is it that you wanted to, play center field? Was it for the
Oh,
Detroit
yes,
Tigers?
yeah. I sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is it about that? Like what is the purpose of playing center field? What is the intention behind that? What is the big why behind that?
Well, that's a good question. At the time, it was, I loved baseball. My dad loved baseball. It was like a kind of like, my mom worked nights and we watched baseball every night. So that was like my heroes kind of growing up. The funny thing is, as I got older, and baseball started to become really serious, and I had to play all the time and it became stressful. It didn't seem, maybe there was other things out there. I did the same thing with being an attorney. I became an attorney, became a prosecutor, and I became really good at doing trials. And I became so good at it that I was always expected to win, and always, they say the law is like a pie eating contest. First place is more pie. So you do well, then you get even more. And it kind of got to the point after like 8 years of doing it where it's like, I don't even like doing this anymore. And I don't know I don't know if that really answers your question, but I don't know. I just liked baseball and wanted to be famous and play center field at the Tiger Stadium.
Yes. I mean, if you like, for me, from what I hear is that there's a little bit of the fame that, and that's total, like that's a value that is totally fine. And then there's also the connection that you had with your dad, of it being able to be
Mhm.
an element that connected you to a relationship. And like for me, from my experience and from my experiences with my clients, is what I've seen is that there is a value behind those things. So for example, one of my clients, when she was 4, 5, 6 years old, she wanted to be a nurse and a nun. And she ends up being a midwife and a shaman. Well, both are of service and both have spirituality as two driving values. The
Mhm.
forms shifted, but and one of the things that I think is that your passion can evolve in the form, but the mission kind of
Yeah.
stays the same. So for me, my mission in life has always been transforming people's stories from problem to possible. And I've I grew up seeing problems in my house, and yet at the same time I saw the possibility of my dad's sobriety. I saw, like, when he was sober, he was a rockin' dad. And that was what was so beautiful, that I've always been able to hold the juxtaposition of, even if someone is behaving in a way that's not producing great results, or that's self-destructive, or that's self-sabotage, I still see their potential of who they can be, of who they actually aspire to be. And who, like, I'm able to hold that vision for both. And that's something that I've been blessed with. If I'm able, then how do I transform people's stories from, oh, this is a problem, whether it's a problem with my body, or it's a problem with my business, or it's a problem with my relationships, into something of possibility, and of really tapping into that full potential that it is that they actually want to be operating in. And when you can bridge that gap, it's huge. But that's something that I've done since I was 5 years old, is do that through stories, or do that through books, or do that through different mediums. The form has changed. So sometimes the form can change. Maybe the form is not professional baseball, but the form is,
Mhm.
being able to connect with people. You're able to do that with this podcast. And,
Mhm. Yeah.
you're also able to have that bit of performer, of being the famous in essence of that's what I am kind of as when I go on podcasts or am on my own. Like I get to be the showman, the actor, the lead of my own show. So I'm able to do the acting, but without all the BS that I hated about Hollywood anyways.
Yeah.
Oh, we could do a whole podcast. I'd be curious to hear some of those stories.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Murray.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, always wanting to be a rock star and doing the podcast. I mean, I've still got a mic in front of me now, so it all ties together. And I've thought about that a lot too. Like, okay, what I wanted to do, how did that translate into what I'm doing now? And then now the side hustle, the entrepreneur, like everything that I'm going after, I can see all the connections. So to hear somebody say it is actually reassuring. Like, okay, I wasn't crazy. Like there is something there. And for you, I mean, you've got a multi-point program and you've got a really good YouTube video out there. And I think this ties really nicely into your point about feel good versus look good, and to make sure you're selling for the right reason. And that will just, internally, it'll inspire you, and then it helps build sales. So I think overall, everything we've talked about up to this point, it makes perfect sense because you have to get yourself in a good spot and you got to do it for the right reasons. But that does actually drive a business and help sales.
Yeah. And I mean, I love sales. Like I never thought, I would love sales, but I just ended up being naturally good at it because I just come from a place of service. And the only time, and when I sucked at sales, because I did go through a period where I sucked, when I sucked at sales, it was because I was focusing on the money rather than on the service. When I started focusing on, like when I started in Pilates, within a year, somehow I was suddenly the fullest booked freelance instructor at the studio that I was teaching at, completely booked, the youngest and the highest paid. And when I was struggling in growing Crown Yourself, I was like, how did I do that? Well, the problem was with Crown Yourself, I started to think of it as I need to grow this business, quote unquote. And I started focusing on growing the money and making the money rather than serving the person. I never made money from focusing on making money. I've always made money from being able to just be so focused, so passionate about the service and the transformation that service can provide. Like that. And that was the power of through teaching Pilates. And that was why I got so fully booked so fast, was because I would be able to deliver results. And that's another thing. You also have to be able to deliver the results and give the experience so that you actually feel it. And when you feel it, you're like, oh, so that's what's possible. So like, that's what I do in my 90-minute consults when someone comes to me to work with me. They get the experience of, oh, this is what it's like. This is what being asked some new questions is like. This is what challenging my perspective and looking at things from a different way can actually create in my business. And that's where the power is when you can shift. Those little perspective shifts can change the game for any relationship, for any relationship, and everything is a relationship. You have a relationship with your business, you have a relationship with money, you have a relationship with the people that you're in relationships with, and you have a relationship with your body. We have a relationship with everything. We're constantly relating to other things and other people. The question is, are we in a relationship that is a relationship that we want to be in? And that was one of the things that I wrote for Forbes was, are you in an it's complicated relationship with your business? Because so many people are in a relationship with their business. And I was there too, back in 2015, 2016, when I was doing all the productive procrastination stuff in my business, and kind of like, I had the website and was putting out content. I had no freaking sales offer. I had no offer. It had no money coming in. I had no funnels built. I had no products or services, but I had a fancy website and I had a nice logo. And being in that space where I saw that productive procrastination space, I was able to really look at what really makes a business and then what really doesn't. And so I say that there is, just like with making a baby, there is only one process that will make a baby. Sperm has to meet egg. It can be in a test tube, it can be naturally, but sperm has to meet sperm has to meet an egg. Same is true for business. Other people's cash has to meet your products and services. That's business. That's as simple as it can be. But so often we get convoluted in like all the things that make it look good, like a fancy Instagram or a nice website, or like for me, I bought tons of like filming equipment to make it like make all the lighting good and all that. And none of that produced the results of actually being in a successful business. And what happens, just like in any relationship, when you're in a relationship with something and you're constantly giving, you're giving your time, you're giving your money in a relationship, and then it's not reciprocating, meaning you're not receiving money from it, you're not receiving anything from it. Eventually you can build up resentment. Eventually that builds up friction. And eventually we get a little tired of being in a relationship where we feel like we're taken advantage of. And I use quotes around that because who's allowing yourself to be taken advantage of, especially when it's you in your own business? So the same is true for any relationship, for money, for the relationship we have with our body. It's when we're putting things in and not receiving the result. How do we fix that? It's complicated.
Right. Now, it sounds like you studied Murray and I's businesses perfectly. Sounds like our relationship. No, I can really relate to that. I can. It really resonates well with me because I all the things that you're saying, I started mine. I kind of refer to mine as a side hustle because I have a full-time day job, but at the same time, there's some urgency that I make this business work if I want to get out of the full-time day job and do it long term. And I fall into the same problems where I'll go like spend a month like working on my website and it looks great, but no one's calling. Or I'm buying an $800 camera and I'm going to do some new videos, but no one's calling to get courses. What's the median between, what is that happy medium between like you need to do those things to create a nice brand for yourself and be out there, but at the same time, you still have to make sales. Like you said, you don't want to just be focused on the money. But for you, what have you found to be something in like kind of in the middle to make it work both ways?
Relationships, building relationships, because like everything it's everything in life is a relationship, and people don't do business with a product or a service. People don't do business with a website. People don't do business with a fancy logo. They do business with a person who has a solution for a problem. And so
that's probably the best advice that I've heard.
Yeah. And so being able to solve someone's problem. And that's where your offer is. That's where your sale is in charging someone to solve their problem. Like as a lawyer, you're solving people's problems all day. People have a problem with litigation. Nobody wants to be in that problem.
No, I do.
Nobody wants to be in that. But now it's just, what is the problem that you're solving and how can you solve that problem and add more value?
All right, Murray, the rest of the show is yours. I got to go get to work. I have all the advice that I need.
But for anyone actually watching the video of this, so watching the vodcast, you can tell that Erik's setup is a little bit different than mine. And we had this conversation before we even got on here. So I'm glad we're talking about it now because you can see I've got a shadow here. Like my setup's a little bit different. Erik's got like the professional lighting. And we're trying to figure out where's that balance of, okay, I feel like I've probably put in enough until the podcast grows a little bit more. Erik's, I think it's a little more of a hobby and he's going a little more all in. I'm like, that's fine too. But it's like, where do we draw that line? Where do we meet in the middle here? And just based on, where we're at with the podcast, and we are providing a service, but until we grow it a little bit more, like, let's just focus on that service. Like, how can we get this out there to them, realize we're touching as many lives as possible, and then, invest appropriately, Erik?
Yeah, I'm kidding.
Well, and
no, I think that's great.
I call it the Titanic business model because if you think of the Titanic, I love the movie Titanic. I've been obsessed with the Titanic since I was like 9. And perhaps in a past life, I died on the Titanic or something. I don't know. But I've been obsessed with that ship since like James Cameron is. And the thing about the Titanic is it was the most beautiful ship that's ever sailed the seas. And it was gorgeous. And it had everything. accept enough lifeboats and accept a well-trained team and accept the leadership that it needed to safely get to its destination. And as the business goes, as the leader goes, so does the business. So that's why for me, I work with the leaders of the businesses to look at where they're not seeing the icebergs. Where are they missing icebergs or where are they currently sinking that they can, plug up a hole or shut some watertight doors to be able to save and stay afloat and then sail safely to their destination to get back. Because that's the thing. As I had a Titanic business for a year and a half, it looked really beautiful on the outside, great photo shoots, spent a lot of money on design and having a fancy website and all that, but I had no products and services. After getting pregnant, I basically blew all that up. The only thing I kept was my logo. And because I love my logo, but the only thing,
That's an awesome logo.
thank you. The only thing that I kept was that. And then I redid my website on Squarespace in a weekend and just made it super simple, breaking it down to one service that I sold.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sold that service and I went out and built relationships. And that's the thing, is that people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. And so how can you build, they're not doing relationships with your website. Like, nobody has a love affair with a website. Like, you can love it. You can be like, oh, this is really pretty. But it doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, I'm going to do business with you. Oh, I trust you enough to give you my dollar. It really is all about building relationships. And that's why I love going on other people's podcasts. And that's why I love doing my podcast, The Princess and the Bee. And that's why I love just being out there on social media, is meeting the people that I can impact to see if they have a problem that I can solve. And if I can help them solve a problem, I'm happy to do that. And I have a range of prices and services depending upon where they're at to help them solve that problem. And I do it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that, because I've been through some mastermind classes myself, and I was looking over your content, and it's spot on. It's really well done, and it's, said differently. There were a couple of new things in there that I hadn't heard before, so there was a ton of value that I got from it. So if anyone's listening, definitely go check out Crown Yourself. You're the real deal.
Thank you. I would love to know, Murray, what was something that you really hit you?
So the one that I had never heard before was the Zone of Genius. And it was like one of those things where I had to go back and I kept rewinding it a little bit. I was like, all right, like I got to listen to this 2 or 3 times and I figure it out. And I mean, I'm an engineer. And even when you said the math part, I was like, okay, I'll be able to follow this. And then I was like, wait, nope, I missed it. Like, go back, listen to it again.
Yeah, the direct correlation that I have seen is the more someone spends their time in their zone of genius, the more money they make. And my zone of genius is pretty broad. My zone of genius is in creating, connecting, and challenging. So I do that in a multitude of different ways. I've done that in a coaching session. I am doing that in my book, Rule My Body, that's coming out this year. I do that in courses. I do that in conversations with other people. I do that on my podcast. But it's creating, connecting, and challenging. And so either connecting the dots of patterns or connecting a belief to something that's no longer working, or a habit, or connecting a person to a person. But when I'm operating in those 3 areas, that is my zone. That is my sweet spot. And so spreadsheets are not a part of that. Like, I love a good organized spreadsheet. But back when I was making no money, I was focused on having these really lovely organized spreadsheets and having lots of processes. And like, I can see like creating processes is probably definitely, it's not really, it's double, but is definitely up there with my zone of excellence. And that's the one that people get very tripped up on, because you have your zone of excellence that are the things that you do so well that you're probably praised for them doing them so well, but they are not the thing that you could do forever for free all day, every day, and make. buttloads of money. Like, you can make buttloads of money from your zone of excellence. People do it all day long in jobs that they don't like, that they may be really, really good at. They may get awards for it. They may get lots of praise for it. And then they feel like their soul is dying.
Yep. Sounds like your cat believes that too.
The cat was just
sorry about that.
Yes.
We almost made it through without any animal noises, then of course.
The cat totally felt the soul suckingness of that, of what the zone of excellence can be in. Because, I mean, that's what screenwriting, but not being able to be in charge of the production was for me. Like, I loved writing a film. I didn't love passing off a blueprint and then not being able to see it through. Like, the next time I write a film, I would want to be involved as a producer of some sort, to be able to have more say in how the film is, in maybe in the acting or the directing or the creative process, but just to be able to have a little bit more of my hand in. I didn't love that part of the process. And that was one of the things that I was like, this is a zone of excellence, but my zone of genius is in creation, and it's in the full breadth of creation. So being able to, and Pilates, I got praised so much for being able to be a really amazing Pilates instructor. And I loved it, but I never felt 100% fulfilled teaching Pilates, because there's only so many times you can tell someone to like squeeze in their rib cage and like pull up in their Kegel and engage those muscles. And that experience showed me, okay, this is an area that I'm excellent in, but what is it that's specifically excellent about this? Like, what is this that I absolutely love? And the things that I would love about it would be challenging, would be those moments where I'd say to my clients, like, 10 more, come on, you got this. And to be cheering and championing them on to like push just a little farther than they thought was possible. And then they do it. And then they're like, oh my God, I feel amazing. And then they'd come back the next week and be like, oh my God, my abs were sore for 2 days. I'd be like, that's what I love. And so creating that body, creating and challenging, but not necessarily the doing of the teaching, not necessarily being there, being like, okay, 5 more. So there's a different energy when you're operating in the zone of excellence versus in the zone of genius.
Yeah. One of I resonate that I love that, because we've had guests on here before, and a constant theme and topic of the show is people that get that or feel that they're stuck in a job or a career that they may be very good at, but they hate it, and it takes their soul. You know, for me, I loved being a prosecutor. I loved being a court, but I went through severe burnout, and it was difficult for me to tell my family, like, I want to start this business where I'm going to teach police officers about the Fourth Amendment. Like, what? Like, why did you go to law school? You're not going to be a lawyer? You're not going to go join the private firm? No, I don't want to do that, because it almost killed me the first time around. I don't want to go back into that. I think people have a hard time. Like, I certainly did. It was a difficult decision to make and say, this is what I want to do. And it sounds like that's something that you've been able to like do. Do you have any advice for people that are struggling with that, on, you know, being real with themselves, on do you stay with this, or do you take a chance and find out what you like and go part of this and go do something else?
It does take courage. And I get the question a lot, like, when should I leave my day job? Like, so that's kind of how I translate this question of like, when do I lean in? When do I go all in on that thing? When do I fully lean in? And it's going to be different for everybody. And this is why I love using the body as a tool, because when you know where certainty and trust live in your body, you can trust that. So for example, when I got my first client, my first coaching client, and my first coaching client was more than I made in a month teaching Pilates. And I was like, what? I can do this? Like, she signed with me, and I could like this, I get to actually really transform someone's life and put them through a process that works and deliver these results. And when I got that, I immediately quit my job, because I had enough certainty and trust that if I did it once, I could do it again. However, that's not for everybody. So one of my very dear friends, she waited until she had a 6-figure coaching business before she left her corporate consulting job. It's different for every person and for every circumstance. She also was a mother of 2. So that it's different for the circumstances. So she had to build up a different level of certainty and trust with herself versus me. I was newly pregnant and fully just going into motherhood. And I was like, I have no idea what this is, but I know that if I've done it once, I can do it again. And so everyone has a different level of risk tolerance. The key is to lean into your courage, though, and to also trust that when you have gained enough certainty and trust with yourself that you can repeat the process, that you can do it again, that you can grow that thing, that you can build that thing, that you can make money from doing that thing and provide a life for your family, and you've hit a freedom metric that you're comfortable with, that, and by freedom metric, I mean like a number that you're comfortable with making monthly or yearly, that you're like, yes, I'd like to go by monthly, because if we wait till the end of the year, then that's like 11 months that we could have spent doing other things. So really focusing and leaning into the genius. So if you get to a point where you're making a certain amount and you're like, this is a very comfortable income that I'm able to support my family, I'm able to support myself, and I have enough certainty and trust that I can continue to grow this, then that is when it's time to lean full in.
Awesome. Kimberly, we've had you on here for 45 minutes. I think, Murray, we finally figured out how to do a proper podcast show now.
You guys are great.
Yeah, well, this is awesome too, because, part of the podcast is Murray and I really do try to learn from our guests. That's kind of why, like, when I talked to you about coming on here, I was like, oh, this is gonna be great, Murray. We're gonna learn a lot about this, and then we can share it with our audience. But yeah, we don't want to keep you on here too much longer. Murray, do you have anything else that you want to follow up?
Of course. I mean, I have so many questions still, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want you to give the farm away. So we'll make sure that we send listeners your way. Overall, like I said, I've looked at your content. It's really well done. I'll learn some new things. And what I really appreciate that ties in with this podcast and just some personal beliefs is you've got to balance the emotional side with business. Like there's a lot of people out there that just preach all about business, and, I guess that's fine, but you need to make sure you go out there and also, make sure your head's strong, that you're in a good place. But that's really, really important to me personally. And I think you did a really good job with that.
Thank you. And I always like to ask,
so tell us,
what did you love about this conversation, Erik and Murray?
Oh man, where do we start? Murray, go ahead. You first.
It's kind of what I just said. Like, we started with that journey, that emotional journey. How'd you get to where it was? And then we kept tying it back to business, but we also had fun with it at the same time. It's like, the reason we did this is a lot of people start a podcast once they made it and they look back and they tell their story. Erik and I were like, this is day one. Let's hit record. Let's show people how real we are. Like, we're going to mess up, we're going to fail, and we're going to be real. We're going to get on the podcast. We're going to talk about it. Even as we're trying to grow and figure out what lighting needs to be, so I don't have the shadow again. But the fact that your story is very relatable to that. And I do definitely believe, you're a couple steps ahead of us, but to have somebody there that is, inspiring, and to hear that story, like, oh yeah, I can do it too. That's what I really appreciated.
Yes.
Yes. No, I second Murray. I really liked when I heard you talk about relationships. That's one thing that it's surprising. I'm an attorney and I do jury trials for a living, but I'm one of the shyest, like, introverts that you'll ever meet. So for me, the hardest thing for me to do is like build the relationships with people, even though I know that's the most important thing. So that really resonates with me. And, I think your story is awesome. I love the fact that you did something, you were very successful at it, but you didn't settle. You said this isn't fulfilling. And then you went out and you kept searching for that thing. And it's incredible to see what you've built and hear the story behind it. So I really appreciate it. It's I will tell you for sure, like, genuinely, I feel like inspired after like listening to you speak on this topic. So I'm probably going to get some more work done tonight.
Yeah,
it's not going to be procrastination. I'm not working on the website. It's time to start selling some stuff. Murray.
And I'll drop you my mom's $1 million business advice as the last tidbit, because I too was painfully shy. I was so shy that in kindergarten, I used to pee myself when I was called on. I was so introverted. I stalked my best friend. She's fortunately still my best friend 30 years later. But like I followed her around the playground. I was too shy to even talk to her. And by first grade, I said, I had my one friend who the one I stalked. And I said, I'd like to make more friends. I'd like to be, have more friends and have more relationships. And my mom said in first grade, she said, Kim, just go up to 10 people a day and say hi with their name. And I was like, okay. And I told her I did it. Like later on, I did it, and it was successful. And then I turned around and I did it in my business, and it's worked so far so good. But
I like that.
it's just saying hi to 10 people a day with their name. And
I like it.
And I watched my parents, even though my dad was an addict, build a multi-million-dollar business from the ground up. And I was able to implement that same advice in my own business. So just saying hi to 10 people and being generous and of service.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah, like you said, Murray, to all our listeners, make sure you go and check out Kimberly's website. I'm sure they can find all your contact information there. And if this is just what we're getting out of the podcast, imagine what you're going to get if you sign up and work with her. So one last time, tell everybody where they can find you if they want to contact you and get in touch with you.
Yeah, so if you want to go to crownyourself.com, super simple. If you would love to work with me, you can just click the button that says work with me and book a 90-minute consult. And I'd love to chat with you and go deeper on your business. And in that conversation, I give you the exact 3-step formula to increase your profits and income 150% in the next 12 months. So you get to walk away with that, whether we work together or not. I'm all about delivering massive service and just being able to empower and transform your stories about what's possible for your business. So if you want to just contact me, if you want to reach out, you can just shoot us an email at info@crownyourself.com and hop on our email list to stay in contact.
Yep, absolutely. And if you're listening to the podcast, we'll leave a link to all your stuff in there. And if you're watching on YouTube, it's down below. It's somewhere down there is the link to all that stuff. All right, Kimberly, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have you back on here again sometime.
I would
and maybe
love
we can
that.
give you an update, see how we use your advice.
Yeah, please do. I would love that. Maybe when my book comes out.
There you go.
Perfect.
That's my big act of courage.
We want the exclusive. When your book comes out, you come on here and we'll help you sell it.
I would love that. I would love that so much. Thank you so much.
Great. All right. Murray, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Yeah. All right, Kimberly, thanks.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you.